So what we'd like to be able to do now is to give you some excerpts from the interview that we just conducted today with the sister of slaughtered, assassinated, murdered Miriam Carey. They're in Washington, D.C., in front of the halls of Congress, going back a month and 17 days ago. We were on the phone with Valerie Carey, who is a retired New York City police sergeant who explained to me the state of affairs regarding the information she's been able to determine and ascertain to date regarding the murder of her sister and where the investigation has gone. And there are a couple of things I want to point out. One is that I'm going to ask you to participate in a petition that Valerie Carey has posted up, asking for your signatures to get Attorney General Eric Holder to open up a investigation into the death of her sister Miriam, a very beautiful young woman shot down in the prime of life while her daughter was in the back seat of her 2010 Affinity automobile. Valerie Carey has not been given, nor the family has not been given at this moment, notification of the death of their family member. The New York City Police Department, the Washington, D.C. Police Department, the Capitol Hill Police Department, Secret Service, they've not, as of today, served this family with an official notice of the death of their loved one. And when the Carey family was able to travel to Washington, D.C., to view the body, they were told that they could not see the body. They were simply shown a photograph of Miriam Carey, but they were not allowed to touch nor see or to fully examine the body to make sure that the person that was alleged to be killed was indeed their sister. That's number one. The other thing is regarding the official notification, and I need to say at the outset here, I want to state that we raised the issue that this woman was killed for purposes we believe to cover up an act with Obama. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. I'm going to tell you what Valerie has said about that. But we, in our zeal to report this, put up the picture of Miriam's niece as the little baby. That picture we put up in our broadcast was not the actual daughter of Miriam Carey, and we want to retract that as the wrong photo of the wrong person, and we want to apologize for having done that. And also in our haste to raise questions about this death that I believe was an assassination, we made a statement such as Miriam Carey's mother has thrown her daughter under the bus, and that is not the case at all. Miriam Carey's mother is a loving mother who's in a lot of pain, who heard about her daughter's death over the news, and this very public death is suffering quite a bit at present, and I don't want to add to that suffering. So it is my deepest apology for having said that the family had thrown the daughter under the bus. That is not true. They are working behind the scenes as much as they possibly can to get done, but it doesn't appear that the courts, the politicians, police department, and others are willing to step to their aid in this matter. And we want to make sure that as this matter goes forward, and anyone else who comes forward with information would protect the mother and the sensitivity of having lost her daughter in such a public, brutal way. I'm sure you can wrap your mind around the thought of what it would be like if one of your children was shot down by the police and accused of the awful things that Miriam Carey were accused of, and they were not true, by the way. The allegations that Miriam Carey was somehow or another a deranged, a psychologically challenged person is a flat out lie. It isn't true. She was not. She was taking postpartum depression medication after giving birth, but from what I've been able to ascertain, a lot of women, millions of women across America have done the same thing, that giving birth to a child can, to some degree, cause depression. And there's a medication specifically prescribed called postpartum depression medication that helps to be able to alleviate that stress. And when the authorities, whether it was the FBI, the Secret Service, did search her home, they found none of that. They only found prescriptions indicating that she had been prescribed that, but because she was taking her medication, there was none left in her home when it was invaded in what they called a search of the home of Miriam Carey. The other item that has been flagged around in the news regarding a reaction that she had over a parking incident where she worked in Stamford, Connecticut with Dr. Oken, who is a dentist, and she worked alongside him as a dental hygienist. And because she has special privileges of parking, I guess it was a discussion or an argument that erupted with a person from the white race regarding who could park there and who could not. And so the argument was now being reported as bizarre, and that as a result of her arguing over her privilege, and she did have privileged parking, they have elevated this in the information that has been picked up in the media. These two incidents, the fact that she was on postpartum depression medication and that she had an argument with someone over a parking spot that we've all done, including myself, that somehow or another that makes her mentally challenged or crazy. I think the first thing that I noticed about this that I've found very, very strange, how is it that a woman who owns her own condo, this woman is a homeowner in Stamford, Connecticut, and she owns a 2010 Infiniti automobile, very well manicured and taken care of. What's crazy? I mean, how do crazy people do that? And I immediately recognize that we're now looking at a smoke screen. And the other item that we're not clear about, that Valerie, the retired police sergeant, New York City police sergeant's sister, said to me that she had made a wrong turn and had turned into the wrong area, sort of like a little cul-de-sac there. And when she recognized she had made the wrong turn and all the police came running out, she just simply tried to turn around, which is what any average person would do. Now, this is critical in terms of the information that is being dispensed. She made a wrong turn into an area, and when she tried to back up and turn around, one of the Capitol Hill police officers threw one of those iron barricades in front of her car. At the time she was driving away, and she just ran over it, and that got their juices going. So she went the right way on the street and tried to turn again, and they cornered her there at the Capitol Hill building. Now, Valerie Carey says to me, and she's a retired police sergeant, not just no, she's a sergeant in the New York City Police Department, says it's not clear now as to whether or not her sister had fully exited the car or not. However, the reports we're getting that she did. But nonetheless, Valerie is also clear that there were no guns found in the car, that there's an affidavit I'm going to put up online for you to be able to see, that signed by a judge giving the Capitol Hill Police and Washington, D.C. Police the authority to search her car. They found nothing. They found no guns, no bombs, no intimidating letters, no threats, no anything. And the affidavit indicates as well that the reason for searching was not that she had rammed. Now, and we've seen the video, and I'll show it to you again. But when the Capitol Hill Police inquired of a judge for the affidavit to legally search her, for the permission rather, to legally search her car, they did not put the reason for her, for their search and for their final execution of her as that she either attempted murder or that she rammed the government property. None of those reasons are listed. It's just reason that that there was an altercation and she's dead and they need to be able to search the car. So this one affidavit, I think, in fact, I'm confident, will stand to demonstrate that Miriam Carey was not a threat, because had she been a threat, even they're not knowing whether she had guns or a bomb or something of that nature in the car, they would have indicated that in the affidavit. There's no such thing there. Now, talking with Valerie today, we certainly want to keep in mind, the protection of her family, her mother in particular, but we also need to get to the bottom of this. And I was able to discuss with Valerie, well, why do you think your sister was in Washington, D.C.? She did not rule out, she did not rule in, she did not rule out that her sister would have had a love affair with Barack Hussein Obama, and that the baby is a love child. In fact, what I've asked Valerie the permission to do is to call for a public outcry that there be a paternity test done on the child that was in the car, done on Miriam's child, to see whether or not the child is of the estranged, if you will, boyfriend of Miriam Carey, a Mr. Eric Francis, who lives in Connecticut, in Hartford, who now has custody of the child. But Miriam, well, Valerie believes that a paternity test ought to be done to determine if this is Obama's love child. Now, she didn't say definitely that it was. She didn't say that, and I want to be clear about that, but she didn't say that it wasn't. And she believes, and I agree, there needs to be a public demand that a paternity test be done to see, well, actually, whose child it is, if it is Obama's child. Valerie was also clear, and very clear, and logical in her thinking, as a retired police sergeant, that she did not know of any personal relations between Obama and her sister Miriam. But you know, Miriam is a very beautiful young woman. I mean, you can see that. It's just, she's just very attractive. She turned any man's head. So we don't know. She was in Washington. She was there with the child. I don't have concrete proof, but I think a paternity test is going to demonstrate that that's Obama's child, and that's why she went there. She went there to confront the father of her child. And the fact that you've not seen any public outcry about this murder of Miriam Carey is because there is a cover-up afoot. Now, let me tell you about the depths of the cover-up. Valerie Carey, the sister of Miriam Carey, is an executive board member of NAIN, the National Action Network ran by Al Sharpton. She's a member of the East Brooklyn chapter of NAIN. The president of that particular chapter is a fellow by the name of Tony Herbert. Now, what we find extremely strange, and we pointed it up in our first presentation, is that why is it that Al Sharpton is not standing by the Carey family with this brutal shooting, this murder, this slaughter of this beautiful young dental hygienist in Washington, D.C. with her baby in the car? I mean, where is Al Sharpton? And that was a question that I had. We haven't heard him on this matter. But now to find out that she is actually an executive officer and member of the National Action Network, and Sharpton has not come to her aid, does not that say to you that somebody has gotten to Sharpton and told him don't do what he normally does, which is get out there and raise sand so that the media will come and questions will be asked, and guilty parties, if they are such, would be then brought to the bar of justice? And this has been nearly 2 months now, and still there's been no call from Sharpton to one of his executive officers of his organization, the National Action Network. Doesn't that appear to be strange to you, that that is where we are in this entire matter? So we need to discover whether or not that there is a cover-up. We need to discover whether or not that baby belongs to Barack Obama, and Al Sharpton has been told to keep quiet. Valerie also stated to me, sitting there in this excruciating pain. You know, it's one thing to lose a loved one, you know, through some disease, if you got leukemia or some other cancer or that or the other, and you kind of go day by day and people get prepared for the, you know, the announcement that you're finally gone. But when you got a healthy, beautiful, young sibling or daughter such as this, and you find out that she's just been murdered. It's very painful, such a public death, and in such a public way. You know, Valerie said to me that she did not find out that the Washington, D.C. Police Department, they released the information about who she was to the public before notifying the next of kin. Valerie says she didn't find out until 5:25 on the day of the event. A reporter from Connecticut called her to ask her about her sister's death out of the blue. And then he told her, if you don't know, you better turn on the television and news and you'll see it there. Isn't it the job of the officials to contact, which should not the Washington, D.C. police, Capitol Hill police should have contacted the New York City Police Department. The New York City Police Department then go and contact the next of kin before the name of the person is released? Why is it that all of these things are happening and have happened to discredit Miriam Carey? As the Lord liveth, I am not going to allow this discrediting of this young woman to proceed any further. We need some answers. First of all, why would fully armed police officers from the Secret Service, the Capitol Hill Police, the Washington, D.C. Police, who are trained to be tempered before pulling the trigger, before actually firing on someone, they go through months and months of training on judgment on when to do such an act. And yet, whether Miriam was still in the car or whether she got out of the car, the threat level was very low. And Valerie pointed this out as a retired police sergeant herself, that women tend to possess a far lower threat level than men do in terms of violent confrontations. But for the police officer to also see she's got her baby in a baby seat in the back of the car, that just removes all threat altogether. For them to open fire the way that they did, and to this very day, the family does not know how many times she was shot. They don't know. The information has not been released. There's been no official notification coming from anybody. However, the FBI and the Secret Service did show up at her door 1 hour after the event looking to search and ask questions. So she refused to allow them to ask questions until she was able to contact her attorney, who was able to come over and try to give some directions, her attorney by the name of Eric Sanders, and you may have seen him on television. Well, guess what they did to him? After Eric Sanders, who's a no-nonsense attorney, who doesn't take tea for the fever, he doesn't do political favors, he doesn't curry up, he doesn't suck up politically and sell out people. Eric Sanders is not a sellout. So when they couldn't get him to sell out, the powers that be, whoever they are, went and found an old case back in 2005. Eric Sanders is an attorney. He works for a law firm. The law firm that Eric Sanders worked for back in 2008 had an outstanding case, not against Eric Sanders. He was simply the representative. They went and arrested him on federal charges. Now, this case has been out there since 2005. But to silence him, they arrested him, threw him in a federal jail, and would not give him due process. He sat as an attorney on a civil matter, by the way. This is a civil matter, not a criminal matter, and a matter that was not related to him. It was related to the firm that he represented. But he had to sit in jail, in a federal jail here in New York, for 6 days before they released him on bail in an effort to silence him. But my friends, you see where all this is going? You see where all this is going? Why isn't Al Sharpton out supporting one of his executive officers of the East Brooklyn National Action Network in the death of her sister? Why isn't he standing with? Why didn't he attend the funeral? Who told him not to? I mean, why don't we hear outcry from Congressman Gregory Meeks? The Congressman Meeks lives in he's a congressional officer he's an African-American or black, if you will, congressperson who lives in a region who is actually his region of borders. Why have we heard from Charles Rangel? He's a New York City congressman as well. Why, and when for a black woman, a beautiful woman, to be shot down in front of her baby and to be shot down in front of her family on Capitol Hill streets, in front of the Capitol Hill building, by a barrage of police bullets. Why is it that the black congressmen or white congressmen of men of note and nobility, why aren't they raising their voices against such a slaughter? Just the opposite happened. They went back into the halls of Congress after the event took place and had a 4-minute standing ovation applauding the Capitol Hill police officers, the Secret Service and Washington, D.C. police officers, in unison for assassinating, for executing this woman, and they applauded for 4 minutes and a standing ovation to these murderers in the Capitol Hill Police, Washington, D.C., and also the FBI and Secret Service and whoever else was involved in this process. They applauded the death of this beautiful young woman. My friends, listen, we've got to discover what is going on here and why is this happening? Why? Did Obama order the cover-up? Did Miriam Carey drive to Washington to see Obama about their relationship? And coming there, someone was prepared to start an altercation. And so they cooked up this story that the woman is crazy. Now, wait a minute, everybody. She lives alone, right? She owns her own condo. She works as a dental hygienist. She owns a 2010 automobile. Her baby was well cared for. She was not under any duress from any agency stating that she was not a proper mother. So they throw out this, they go and find some medication in her house when they search it, or prescription, not the medication. They find that she doesn't have the medication. They find a prescription for postpartum depression and say, aha, she's a crazy woman. And they find an argument she had with someone over a parking spot. My friends, this is a cover-up. This was an execution. This was an assassination. This was a brutal murder of a woman to cover up something going on down there in Washington. Something in Washington drove her down there, and we need to find out what it is. We need to find out why. And Valerie raised this as a question with me. Al Sharpton jumped up and down when it was reported that Barney's department store was involved in shop and frisk, and Macy's was likewise, and called a press conference and threatened and went and met with the executives of Barney's department store to be able to so-called bring justice to black shoppers that were accused of stealing things out of Barney's department store on